are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. So Hamlet says to Horatio. I suppose if I were a Shakespearean character, I would be Horatio. My whole life I've been a rational, down-to-earth person, guided by morality and a deep faith in God. But now, these are the most incredible letters by my two closest friends, both dead now. And I find myself uttering the words of Horatio. Oh, day and night, but this is wondrous strange. I scarcely believe what they contain, but it is clear they bear an undeniable truth. A truth that so distorts my perception of human life and the spirit that dwells within us that I am shaken to my very core. It is a strange story that plays over and over in my mind.
I was fortunate to be the only child of Dr. Herbert Jekyll, a well-known and respected physician. I was born with a large fortune, an excellent physique, inclined by nature to be industrious, and fond of the respect of good and wise people. I had every guarantee of an honorable and distinguished future. The worst of my faults was a fondness for lively society, fine wine and merriment. And while such a life has been the happiness and desire of many, I found it hard to reconcile with my desire to hold my head high and to present a more serious bearing in public. So I concealed my pleasures. And when I reached the age of reflection and began to take stock of my progress and position in the world, I realized I was actively pursuing two separate lives. Many men would have bragged about the sins that I was guilty of, but I regarded and hid them with a deep sense of shame. It was by the nature of my aspirations that I judged my faults, knowing they may be what I was, and that they divided me into two provinces of good and ill. I became consumed by man's dual nature, driven to deeply reflect on that hard law of life, which lies at the root of religion and is the bearer of much distress. I was profoundly a double dealer. But I was in no sense a hypocrite. Both sides of me were dead earnest. I was no more or less myself when I set aside restraint as a bon vivant and plunged into shame, than when I labored as a doctor at the furtherance of knowledge or the relief of sorrow and suffering.
Girl and woman, I have been in the service of the Jekyll family for over 20 years now. There is nothing that happens around here that I don't know about. Dr. Jekyll's lawyer and one of his oldest friends is Mr. Utterson. He's a true gentleman, treats and respects all people the same. He's very serious, dreary even. You might say a man of a rugged countenance. But catch him at a dinner with friends when the wine is to his liking and the deepest humanity and warmth beams from his eyes. And it's not something you would know about through his conversation, but through his actions in life. He is very austere. And though I've heard him declare how much he enjoys the theater, I wager he hasn't been in one in 20 years. But as I say, what I respect the most is his tolerance and respect for others. If I've heard him say it once, I've heard him say 1,000 times.
I incline to Cain's heresy. I let my brother go to the devil in his own way.
His circle of friends are either relatives or people he's known the longest. That's probably why he gets on with Mr. Enfield. He's a distant cousin and a well-known man about town. Hard to know what they have in common, but you see them every Sunday out for their weekly stroll. They just walk along in silence, looking absolutely bored and obviously very relieved whenever they meet a friend. But they consider those excursions the highlight of each week and are determined that they not be interrupted by neither business nor pleasure.
One of our Sunday rambles took us down a by street in a busy quarter of town. With its freshly painted shutters and general cleanliness, this line of homes and businesses shine out in contrast to the dingy neighborhood. It's a rather small street and quiet, though I knew to have busy trade on weekdays. 2 doors from one corner on the left, this line is broken by an entryway to a courtyard, and just at that point, a rather sinister 2-story block of a building juts out onto the street. From all appearances, one would think that it was uninhabited. We were on the other side of the street, but just as we passed, Mr. Enfield pointed it out with his cane.
Have you ever noticed that door?
Yes, I have.
It's connected in my mind with a very odd story.
Indeed? And what was that?
Well, it was like this. I was coming home one night at about 3 in the morning, through this part of town. All at once I saw 2 figures. One was a little man who was stumping along eastward at a good pace. The other, a small girl of maybe 8 or 10, who was running as hard as she could down the cross street. Well, naturally enough, the 2 ran right into each other at the corner, and the little girl slammed to the ground. Then, the man calmly trampled repeatedly the child's body and left her screaming on the ground.
Good God!
May not sound like much, but it was hell to see. It wasn't even like a man, it was like some damn juggernaut. I ran out and grabbed him, brought him back. There was already a group around the child. He made no resistance and was perfectly cool, but he gave me a look so ugly that it brought out the sweat in me as if I'd been running in a race. The people who had turned out with the girl's family, and soon the doctor who had been called, also arrived. The child was not much the worse, more frightened than anything. And you would think that would be the end of it. But it was so strange. I took a loathing to this man at first sight. And so had the child's family, which was only natural. But the doctor, who I guess had seen his share of nastiness, was the same. Every time he looked at this man, I saw him turn a sickly white, and I swear he had murder in his eyes. We told him we would make such a scandal of this that if he had any friends or reputation, he would lose them all. I never saw a circle of such angry faces, and there he was, right in the middle, with a kind of sneering dark coolness. Frightened too, I could see that, but carrying it off, really like Satan. He said, any gentleman wishes to avoid a scandal, so we should name our figure. We suggested 100 for the child's family. He said he'd get the money right away. Where do you think he left us? But to that very door. He whipped out a key, went in, came back with 10 in cash, and a check for the balance signed by a name I can't mention, but a name very well known. I pointed out, a man does not walk into a cellar door at 4 in the morning and come up with another man's check for so much money. He told us to set our minds at rest, that he would wait with us till the bank's open and cash the check himself. So, the doctor, the child's father, our friend, and I passed the rest of the night at my apartment. And after breakfast, we went to the bank. I presented the check myself. Told the teller I had every reason to believe it was a forgery. Not a bit of it. Check was genuine.
Oh my.
I see, you agree. It's a bad story. The man was a fellow nobody could have anything to do with. And the person who drew the check? The model of propriety. A respected gentleman who everyone knows does good. I figured it was blackmail. An honest man paying through the nose for some of the capers of his youth. But even that hardly explains it all.
And you don't know whether the drawer of the check lives there?
In a place like that, I doubt it. Anyway, I happen to have noticed his address. He lives on some square or other.
And you never went there to ask about the place with the door?
Me? No, sir. I have a delicacy. I feel very strongly about asking questions. It's too much like Judgment Day. Besides, once you start a question, it's like starting a rolling stone. You sit quietly at the top of the hill, away the stone goes, scaring others, and before you know it, the last bland old fellow you would have thought of is knocked on the head in his own back garden, and the whole family's life is ruined. No, sir, the more it looks like Odd Street, the less I ask.
A very good rule, too.
Yes, I think it is, but I've studied the place. It scarcely seems a house. There's no other door. And nobody goes in or out of that one, but once in a great while, the gentleman of my adventure. And then there's a chimney that's generally smoking, so somebody must live there. But even that's not so sure, because the buildings are so packed together around the court, it's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins.
Enfield? That's a good rule of yours. But even so, there's something I want to ask. What was the name of the man who stomped over the child?
Well, I can't see what's wrong with it. There's a man by the name of Hyde.
What sort of man is he? What does he look like?
Well, he's not easy to describe. There's something about his appearance, something displeasing, something downright detestable. I never saw a man I so hated immediately, and yet I can't tell you why. On the one hand, he's an extraordinary looking man. On the other, I can't name anything that's out of the way. No, sir, I really can't describe it. And it's not from lack of memory. I swear I can see him right now, clear as day.
And you're sure he used a key?
You did?
No.
Certain.
I'm sorry. This must seem strange. But the reason I didn't ask the other party's name is that I already know it. You see, Richard, your tale hits home on another matter. If you have been inexact at any point, I wish you to correct it.
You might have warned me. I have been pedantically exact, as you might say. The fellow had a key, and what's more, he still does. I saw him use it not a week ago. Well, there's another lesson to never say anything. I apologize for my gossip. Let's make a promise to never speak of this again.
Absolutely. With all my heart, I'll shake on that, Richard.
My scientific studies, which lean toward the mystic and the transcendental, shed a strong light on the war between the two natures within me. From both my moral and intellectual sides, I drew nearer to the truth that a person is not one, but two. I say two only because my own knowledge does not pass beyond this point. Others no doubt will follow, and I hazard the guess that ultimately humans will be known as an assemblage of multifarious, incongruous, and independent denizens. But between the two natures that contended in my consciousness, even if I could rightly be said to be either, it was only because I was radically both. So, from an early date, I daydreamed and dwelt with pleasure at the thought of separating these elements. I thought, if each person could live in separate identities, life could be relieved of all that was unbearable. The unjust could just go his own way, free from the remorse or the aspirations of his more upright twin. Then the just could walk securely on his upward path, doing good things, and no longer exposed to the disgrace and punishment brought on by the acts of this extraneous evil. It was the curse of mankind that these two incongruous branches could be so bound together and continuously struggling. could they be? Separated. I was deep in my reflections when I began to perceive more deeply than ever has been the immateriality of this seemingly solid human body. I found that certain elements have the power to shake and pull back that fleshly vestment. I will not delve deeply into the science of my discoveries for two good reasons. First, because I have learned that the burden of our life is forever on our shoulders. When the attempt is made to cast it aside, it returns with the most unfamiliar and awful pressure. And second, because as I became painfully aware, my discoveries were incomplete. But I was in awe. Not only was I able to see my natural body as different from the aspects of my spirit, I managed to compound a drug from which those powers could be separated, a second form and countenance created, the expression of the lower elements in my soul.
After my Sunday outing with Mr. Enfield, I came home in somber spirits and sat down to dinner. On Sundays, after dinner, it is my custom to sit by the fire with a volume of some dry divinity until around 12, and then go soberly and gratefully to bed. But that night, I went up to my study. I opened my safe and took out an envelope which was titled Dr. Henry Jekyll's Last Will and Testament. I sat down and reread it again. Though it was in my possession, I had refused to assist in the making of it. It provided not only that in the case of the death of Dr. Henry Jekyll, that all his possessions should pass to his friend and benefactor, Edward Hyde, but also in the case of his disappearance or unexplained absence, that Edward Hyde was to step into Henry Jekyll's shoes without further delay and be free of all burden and obligation. At first, I thought it was the fact that I had never heard of Hyde that made me indignant, but now it was my knowledge of him. It was worse to know his detestable attributes, and it seemed to me to reap the presentiment of a fiend who had designs on the life of my friends. Before, I thought the whole matter was madness, but now I began to believe it was disgrace. I secured the will in my safe, put on my coat, and headed off to the house of my friend, Dr. Hasty Lanyon. I thought if anybody would know, it would be him. We were old friends, both at school and at college, with a deep respect for each other. After some friendly, rambling talk, I embarked upon the subject that so preoccupied my mind. I suppose, Lanyon, that you and I are the two oldest friends that Henry Jekyll has.
Oh, I wish the friends were younger, but I suppose we are. And what of that? I really don't see much of him now.
Indeed. I thought you enjoyed a bond of common interest.
We do. But it's been more than 10 years since Henry Jekyll became just too fanciful for me. He began to go wrong. Wrong in the mind. Of course, I still take an interest in him for old time's sake, as they say. But I see and have seen devilish little of the man. Such unscientific balderdash. What of a strange Damon Pythias?
Well, professionals will have their differences, I suppose.
Yes, well, I suppose, as you say.
Even so, have you ever come across a protege of his, one Edward Hyde?
Hyde? Hyde? No, no. Never heard of him, not in my life.
That was the full amount of information that the lawyer carried back with him to the great bed on which he tossed until the small hours of the morning. It was a night of little ease for his toiling mind, which was besieged by questions. Until now, they had touched his intellectual side alone. But now his imagination was also engaged. And as he tossed and turned in the darkness, my story went through his mind like a scroll of lighted pictures. He would see the dark city, then the figure of a man walking swiftly, a girl running, and when they met, the juggernaut trotting her down and her screaming. Or he would see his friend asleep, then the door thrown open, and there beside him, the dreaded figure forcing him to rise and do its evil bidding. But in his dreams, the figure had no face, or one that melted before his eyes and baffled him. If he could only set eyes on him, he thought, the mystery would lighten, or perhaps roll altogether away. He might see a reason for his friend's strange preference, or even for the strange clause in the will. At least it would be a face worth seeing. A face of a man without mercy, a spirit of enduring hatred.
If he be Mr. Hyde, then I shall be Mr. Seek.
I hesitated for a long time before I put my theory to the test. I was well aware that I risked death. Any drug that could so potently control and shape the very foundation of identity might, by the smallest of overdoses, utterly blot out the very being that I was hoping it would change. But the temptation of a discovery so profound eventually overcame the alarm. I purchased from a local chemist a large quantity of a particular salt that I knew from my experiments to be the final ingredient required. Then late one night, I compounded the elements and, with a strong glow of courage, drank the potion. The most awful pain ensued, a grinding of the bones, a deadly nausea, a horror of the spirit. There was something strange in my sensations, something indescribably new and incredibly sweet. I felt younger, lighter, happier in body. I knew myself from the first breath of this new life to be more wicked, tenfold more wicked, and the thought braced and delighted me like fine wine. I stretched out my hands, exulting in the freshness of these sensations, and I became aware that I had lost in stature. I can only theorize as what I think is most probable. Since most of my life was spent in the good side of my nature, full of effort, virtue, and control, the evil side, which now had a physical being, was less robust and less developed. As Edward Hyde, no one could come near me without a visceral reaction, a creeping of the flesh. I think this is because all humans are commingled out of good and evil. But Edward Hyde, alone among the ranks of mankind, was pure evil. I again prepared and drank the cup and came to myself with the character, the stature, and the face of Henry Jekyll.
I was determined to meet this Edward Hyde. I began to watch the mysterious door on 5 Street. In the mornings, before office hours. At noon, when business was plenty. At night, under a quiet, foggy moon, at all hours, I was steadfastly at my post. Finally, my patience was rewarded. and I soon saw what manner of man I had to deal with. Mr. Hyde, I think?
That is my name. What do you want?
I see you are going in. I'm an old friend of Dr. Jekyll's, Mr. Utterson of Gaunt Street. I'm sure you've heard my name. And seeing you going in so conveniently, I thought you might invite me in.
You will not find Dr. Jekyll. He is not at home. How do you know me?
First, would you do me a favor?
With pleasure. What shall it be?
Would you let me see your face? Now I will know you again. It may be useful.
Yes, it is as well we have met. And I think it appropriate that you have my address. And now, how do you know me?
By description.
Whose description?
We have common friends.
Common friends? Who are they?
Well, Jekyll, for instance.
He never told you. I did not think you would have lied.
Oh, come now, there's no need for such language. And before I knew it, he had quickly unlocked the door and disappeared into the house. Realizing how readily he had given me his card, I was wondering if he was thinking of the will. The meeting had left me shaken. I was overcome with loathing, disgust, and fear of this man. But it wasn't his physical appearance alone to account for the feeling, the impression of something unnameable, something troglodytic. I'm sure there had to be something more. God bless me, poor Henry Jekyll. If ever I saw Satan's signature upon a face, it is on that of your new friend. Is the doctor in, Poole?
I will see Mr. Utterson. Will you wait here, or shall I give you a light in the dining room?
Here, thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Utterson. Dr. Jekyll has gone out.
I just saw Mr. Hyde go in through the old dissecting room, Poole. Is that all right when the doctor is not at home?
Quite all right, Mr. Utterson, sir. Mr. Hyde has a key.
The doctor seems to put a great deal of faith in that young man.
Oh, yes, sir, he does indeed. We all have orders to obey him.
I see. I don't think I've ever met Mr. Hyde.
Oh, no, sir. You know, he never dines here. Indeed, we see very little of him on this side of the house. He mostly comes and goes by the laboratory.
I see. Well, good night, Poole.
Good night, Mr. Utterson.
Poor Henry Jekyll. He must be in deep waters. He was wild when he was young, but that was a long while ago. It must be that. The ghost of some old sin, some concealed disgrace. Punishment coming years after memory has forgot, and conceit condoned the fault. But what of this Mr. Hyde? He must have secrets of his own, dark ones by the looks of him, secrets by which poor Henry's worst would look like sunshine. Things cannot continue as they are. It leaves me cold to think of this creature stealing like a thief to Henry's bedside. And what if this Mr. Hyde suspects the existence of the will? He might grow impatient to inherit. I must put my shoulders to the wheel. If Jekyll will but let me. If Jekyll will only let me.
I came to a fatal crossroads. The drug had no discriminating action. It in itself was neither diabolical nor divine, but it opened the doors of the prison to my disposition. Hence I had two characters as well as two appearances, one wholly evil, the other still the same old Henry Jekyll, whose tortured life I had come to despair. And so the movement was wholly toward the worse. although I was well known and highly considered, I was still disposed to be merry at times. And as my pleasures were, to say the least, undignified, I found this movement was completely incoherent with my life. My new power tempted me beyond measure. All I had to do was drink the mixture to throw off the body of the noted professor and to assume that of Edward Hyde. It seemed to me at the time to be humorous, and I made my preparations with the most studious care. I took and furnished a home for him. I told my servants that Hyde was to have full liberty and power around my house. I drew up a will, so that if anything befell me as Henry Jekyll, Edward Hyde could continue without financial burden. Think of it. Hyde didn't even exist. I could do anything. Escape to my laboratory, drink the mixture, which I always had prepared, and whatever he had done, Edward Hyde would pass away like breath on a mirror. And there instead, sitting quietly at home, would be the respectable Henry Jekyll.
2 weeks later, Dr. Jekyll gave one of his pleasant dinners to 5 or 6 old cronies, all intelligent, reputable men, and all judges of good wine. Mr. Utterson contrived to remain behind after the others had left. This was nothing new. Where Utterson was liked, he was liked well. Hosts loved to detain the dry lawyer after the loud and loose tongue had departed. They liked to sit a while in his unobtrusive company, sobering their minds in the man's rich silence after the expense and strain of gaiety. To this rule, Dr. Jekyll was no exception.
I've been meaning to speak to you, Jekyll.
Really? What about?
You know that will of yours?
Oh, my poor Utterson! You are unfortunate to have such a client. I never saw a man as distressed as you are by my will. Except that hide-bound pedant Lanyon, what he called my scientific heresies. Oh, I know he's a good man. You needn't frown. He's an excellent fellow, and I always mean to see more of him. But a hide-bound pedant for all that. An ignorant, blatant pedant. I was never more disappointed in any man than Lanyon.
You know I never approved of it.
My will? Oh, yes. Certainly I know that. You have told me so.
Well, I tell you so again. I've been learning some things of this young Hyde.
I do not care to hear more. I thought this was a matter we had agreed to drop.
What I heard was abominable.
It can make no change. You do not understand my position. I am painfully situated, Utterson. My position is a very strange one. It is one of those affairs that cannot be mended by talking.
Jekyll, you know me. I'm a man that can be trusted as well as a formidable lawyer. Make a clean breast of this in confidence, and I have no doubt I can get you out of it.
Oh, my good Utterson. This is downright good of you, and I cannot thank you enough. I believe you with all my heart, and I would trust you more than any man alive. But believe me, it is not what you think. It's not as bad as that. And just to put your good heart at rest, I will tell you one thing. The moment I choose, I can be rid of Edward Hyde. I promise you that. And I thank you again. Let me add just one word, Utterson. This is a private matter, and I beg you to let it sleep.
Yes, well, of course. I'm sure you are perfectly right.
But since we have touched on this business, for the last time, I hope, there is something I want you to understand. I have a great interest in poor Hyde. I know you have met him. He told me so. And I'm afraid he was very rude. But I sincerely take a very great interest in that young man. If I am taken away, Utter said, I want you to promise me that you will bear with him. I know you would, if you knew all. And it would be a great weight off my mind if you would promise.
I can't pretend that I will ever like him.
I do not ask that. I only ask that you help him, for my sake, when I am no longer here.
Yes. Well, I promise.
As I have said, the pleasures I sought when I was with those who didn't know me were undignified. But in the hands of Edward Hyde, they became monstrous. I was often plunged into a kind of wonder at my depravity. Henry Jekyll was aghast at the acts of Edward Hyde. But it was Hyde and Hyde alone that was guilty. Henry Jekyll still had his good qualities unimpaired. I would even try, when possible, to undo the evil done by Hyde. Late one night I returned after one of my adventures and woke up the next day with a somewhat odd sensations. I was not in my bedroom at home, but I was in the room in where I slept in the body of Hyde. I smiled to myself and dropped back into a comfortable morning doze until I glanced at my hand. It was the hand of Edward Hyde. My blood turned up ice. I had gone to bed, Henry Jekyll, but I awoke Edward Hyde. Horrified, I pondered the explanation. And then with another bound of terror, I pondered more importantly the remedy. Fortunately, my servants were used to the coming and going of my second self, so I returned home, passed through the house, and 10 minutes later, Henry Jekyll had regained his own shape. If this were prolonged, my nature might be permanently overthrown, the power of voluntary change lost, and the character of Edward Hyde would forever be mine. The power of the drug was not always the same. Once it had totally failed me. And since then, more than once I had to double, and once with infinite risk of death to triple the amount. I was slowly losing hold of my original and better self, and slowly becoming incorporated into my second and worse.
My good friend, Mrs. Eckington, the housekeeper for Colonel Jameson, has a house of her own not far from the river, and her daughter, a maid for another house, often sleeps there. The other night, before going up to bed, she sat down outside to take in the evening air. It was a clear night, and the lane was lit up by the full moon. As she was sitting there, she saw a handsome elderly gentleman with white hair coming down the lane, and heading to meet him, another gentleman she paid less attention to. When they had come within speaking range, the older man bowed and greeted the other very politely. She was taken by his innocent old-world kindness and elegance, although it didn't look like they were speaking of anything very important. As for the other, she was surprised to recognize a certain Mr. Hyde. He was fiddling with a heavy cane in his hand, never answering a word, just listening and fidgeting. And then suddenly he broke out into a great flame of anger, stamping his foot, swinging his cane, and carrying on like a madman. The older gentleman took a step back, clearly very surprised. Mr. Hyde then broke out of all bounds and clubbed him to the ground, stomped and beat him furiously, so hard his body jumped up and down in the street until she could hear the bones shattering. What with the moonlight and horror of the sights and sounds, the poor lass fainted dead away. She came to herself, around 2 in the morning and called for the police. The murderer was long gone, but his victim lay right there mangled in the middle of the lane. The cane he used to beat him broke in the middle, and one splintered half rolled into the gutter. A wallet and gold watch were found on the man, but no cards or papers, except a sealed and stamped envelope with the name and address of Mr. Utterson.
Between my two natures, I had to choose. Jekyll shared in the adventures and pleasures of Hyde, but Hyde was indifferent to Jekyll. I chose the discontented doctor, surrounded by friends, cherishing honest hopes, and bade a resolute farewell to the liberties and secret pleasures I had known as Hyde. I had perhaps some unconscious reservation, for I neither gave up the house nor destroyed the clothes of Hyde. For 2 months I was true to my determination, but in time I was tortured by throes and longings, as if Hyde were struggling for freedom. And in a moment of moral weakness, drank the transforming mixture. My devil had long been caged, and came out roaring with a more furious propensity to ill. I think this must have been the cause of my impatience with the polite small talk of my unsuspecting victim. Instantly, the spirit of hell awoke in me, enraged. With a transport of glee, I mauled the unresisting body in tasting delight with each blow. And then, all of a sudden, at the top of my delirium, a cold thrill of terror struck through my heart. I saw my life as forfeit, and at once, trembling and glorying, fled from the scene.
I was roused early from my bed by my manservant, announcing there was a policeman downstairs wanting to speak to me. The policeman showed me a gentleman's wallet and a gold watch and asked if I knew the owner. I said that I did not. He then showed me a letter addressed to me at my residence and explained the circumstances. He asked for my comment. I said I would say nothing until I'd seen the body. We drove to the police station, and as soon as I entered, I confirmed that I did know him, and that I was sorry to say that it was the body of Major Danvers Carew, a very well-known and respected public servant. This seemed to shock the officer, who narrated what the maid had seen and showed me a broken cane. The inclusion of Hyde's name in the maid's story had already set me on alert, but when I saw the broken cane, I could doubt no longer. Broken and battered as it was, I recognized it as one that I had presented to Henry Jekyll many years ago.
Fleeing the scene of the crime, Hyde escaped to my laboratory. There was a song upon his lips as he compounded the mixture and drank. The transformation had not even finished before Henry Jekyll, with streaming tears, fell down upon his knees and lifted his clasped hands to God. The problem was solved. Hyde was now impossible. Whether I liked it or not, I was now confined to the better part of my existence. And how I rejoiced to think of it. I humbly embraced anew the restrictions of natural life. I locked the door that as Hyde I had so often gone and come, and ground the key under my heel as a final act of renunciation. By the next day it was clear. The murder was not overlooked, and the guilt of Hyde was known to the world. I
I was uneasy. My years of legal practice had made me acutely aware of the terrors of the law and the law's officers, which at times assail the most honest. But the facts had to be known. So I told the officer that if he would come with me, I believed I could take him to Hyde's house. Upon knocking, a silver-haired old woman answered the door and confirmed that this was Mr. Hyde's house, but that he was not at home. He had been in that night very late, but he had left again in less than an hour. I asked if I could see the rooms, which she declared was impossible, until I told her that my companions were the police. This seemed to give her unexpected pleasure, and she stood aside to allow us in. Most of the house was empty. Mr. Hyde had only used a few of the rooms, and these were luxuriously furnished in good taste. But at the moment, they seemed to have been ransacked. Clothes lay upon the floor, drawers stood open, and in the fireplace, a pile of gray ashes as though many papers had been burned. There we found the half-burnt end of a green checkbook. We found the other half of a cane behind the door, and this clenched our suspicions. The officers were certain that all they had to do was wait at the bank for Mr. Hyde to show up, and then get out wanted handbills with his image. This was not an easy accomplishment. He had never been photographed, and the few that could describe him could only agree on one point: the haunting sense of evil that he impressed upon them.
Mr. Utterson!
Is the doctor in?
Yes, please come in. He's not feeling well. A visit will do him good.
And now, have you heard the news?
They were crying it in the square. I heard them in my dining room.
One word. Carew was my client, but so are you. So I want to know, what am I doing? You're not mad enough to hide this fellow, are you?
Utterson, I swear to God I will never set eyes on him again. I promise you it is all at an end. It is all ending. And indeed, he does not want my help. You do not know him like I do. He is safe, he is quite safe. Mark my words, he will never be heard of again.
You seem to be awfully sure of him. And for your sake, I hope you are right. If there's a trial, your name is likely to appear.
I am quite sure of it. I am grounds for certainty that I cannot share with anyone. But there is one thing on which you may advise me. I have received a letter, and I am not sure whether to show it to the police. I should like to leave it in your hands, Utterson. You will judge wisely, I am sure of it. I have so great a trust in you.
You fear, I suppose, this will lead to his detection.
No, I do not care what becomes of Hyde. I am quite done with him. I was thinking of my own character, which this hateful business has rather exposed.
Well, let me see the letter. My dearest Dr. Jekyll, I write to inform you that I am leaving. I am wholly unworthy and shall never be able to repay the kindness and the 1,000 generosities you have bestowed upon me. Please do not labor any alarm for my safety, as I have a dependable means of escape. I am your humble servant, Edward Hyde. Well, I dare say that's more than I expected from the man. Do you have the envelope?
I burned it before I thought what I was about. But it bore no postmark. The note was hand-delivered.
Should I keep this and sleep upon it?
I wish for you to judge for me entirely. I have lost all confidence in myself.
Well, I'll consider it. One word more. Was it Hyde who infused that thing in the will about your disappearance? I thought so. He wanted to murder you. You have had a near escape.
I have had what is far more to the purpose. I have had a lesson. Oh God, Utterson, what a lesson I have had. I'm dreadfully sorry, Utterson. I am suddenly quite tired.
Not at all. I'll go then. Good night.
Good night, old friend.
Good night, Paul. take care of him, will you?
Yes, sir, of course.
Oh, and by the by, there was a letter delivered here today. Did you happen to see what the messenger looked like?
We didn't receive any messenger today, sir.
Are you certain?
Quite positive. Nothing came today except by post, and then only circulars at that.
I see. Well, good night, Poole.
I resolved, by my future conduct, to redeem the past. I labored to do good, to relieve suffering, and the days passed quietly, almost happily for myself. But I was still cursed with my duality. Not that I dreamed of resuscitating Hyde. It was in my own personal spirit that I was tempted. And it was as an ordinary secret sinner that at last I fell to temptation. But I was not alarmed. It seemed like a return to the old days, before I made my discovery.
I began to long for advice. There's no man from whom I keep fewer secrets than my cousin, Mr. Enfield. I'm sure he's never met Dr. Jekyll, but he has been there on business, so he knows Poole, and he could hardly have not heard of Mr. Hyde's familiarity around the house. He might have drawn some conclusions. I thought I should show him the letter from Hyde. He might be able to shed some light on this subject. Besides, Enfield was a great student and critic of handwriting, and being a man of counsel, he could hardly read such a strange document without dropping some remark, which just might shape my future course of action. But this wasn't to have directly. I thought it might be better fished for.
I was invited to the house of my cousin, Mr. Edison, for dinner one night. Afterward, we retired to his study. The bustling city outside was drowned in an autumn fog, but the room was warm and cozy in the firelight, and it invited easy conversation. After a while, it quite naturally turned to the most common subject of the day.
This is a bad business about Danvers Carew, don't you think?
Yes, indeed. It's really aroused the public sentiment and a great deal of anger. There's no doubt that the man who did it was mad.
Well, I would like your views on that. I actually have a document in his handwriting. This has to be kept between the two of us. I scarcely know what to do with it. It's a bad business at best, but here it is, right up your alley. A murderer's autograph.
Well, well. No, looking at this, I would say maybe not mad, but it is an odd hand.
And by all accounts, a very odd writer.
Is that from Dr. Jekyll by any chance?
What, this?
I'm sorry, it's just that I thought I recognized the writing. Anything private?
No, just an invitation to dinner. Why? Do you want to see it?
Well, just for a minute, if that's okay. Thank you. Thank you indeed. A very interesting autograph.
Why did you compare them?
There's a rather singular resemblance. Both hands are in many points identical, only sloped differently.
Well, that's rather quaint.
It is, as you say, rather quaint.
I would appreciate it if you wouldn't speak of this note.
On my honor, I understand. And now, I must be off. Thank you for a very enlightening evening.
You're welcome, and thank you for making it so. Dear God, did Henry Jekyll forge a murderer's letter?
Talk of the death of Major Carew is everywhere, and details of the investigation were debated and discussed in the newspapers, in reputable society, and in the gossip on the street. Mr. Hyde had disappeared as though he had never existed. Stories of his past were unearthed, tales about his vile life, his cruelty, about the hatred that seemed to possess him. But of his present whereabouts, not a whisper. From the time he left his house on the morning of the murder, he was simply blotted out.
Gradually, as time drew on, I became to feel less alarmed and even came to think that the death of Major Carew was ample payment for the disappearance of Mr. Hyde. In fact, after his vanishing act, a whole new life opened up for Dr. Jekyll. He came out of his seclusion. He began to have small dinner parties. He restored relationships with his friends. He was busy. He was often in the open air. He did good in the community. His face seemed to open and brighten, and for more than 2 months, he seemed at peace. On January 8th, I dined at a small dinner party at his house. Lanyon was there, and judging by the faces of he and Jekyll, they were as good-natured as ever. And I began to feel the warmth of the old days, just as when the three of us had been inseparable friends.
It was a fine, clear January day, and as I sat in the sun on a bench, a horrid nausea and the most deadly shuddering came over me. I looked down. My clothes hung formlessly on my shrunken limbs. The hand that was on my knee was not mine. I was Edward Hyde again. My reason wavered, but it did not fail me. My drugs were in my cabinet. But how were they to be reached? The laboratory door that I had used as Hyde was locked. If I entered through the house, my own servants would call the police. I thought of Lanyon. But how was he to be reached? How could the famous physician be persuaded to rifle the study of his colleague? And how was I to make my way to his house? Then I remembered. I could write my own hand. And then a plan emerged. I hailed a cab and drove to a hotel on Portland Street, where I knew no questions were asked. I took a private room, sent for a pen and paper, and began to write. Hyde, in danger of his life, was a new creature to me. But he was very astute, and he composed 2 important letters, one to Lanyon, one to Poole. He sat alone all day in his room with his fears, and at night, at the appointed hour, hurried to the address of Dr. Lanyon.
The welcome and friendliness I felt from Jekyll at our last dinner together compelled me to stop by and see my old friend. But on the 12th, and again on the 14th, the door was shut against me. I returned on the 15th, and again, I was refused. After seeing him almost daily for 2 months and seeing him as his old self again, this return to seclusion weighed heavily on my mind. I had grown used to the camaraderie of my friends, so on the 5th night I had Mr. Infield come dine with me, and on the 6th I visited my friend, Dr. Hasty Lanyon.
Come in. Come in.
Lanyon, my old friend, what's happened to you? Are you well?
No, I'm not. There isn't much time left for me. I'm a doomed man.
What's happened to you?
I've had a shock. A shock. I shall never recover.
Calm now, certainly not.
It's just a question of weeks. But what can I say? My life has been pleasant. I have enjoyed it. Or should I say, I used to enjoy it. Oh, but I will tell you the truth, old friend. Sometimes I think if we knew everything, we should be all the more glad to escape.
Jekyll is ill too. Have you seen him?
I wish to hear or see no more of Dr. Henry Jekyll. I'm quite done with that person. And I beg that you will spare me any allusion to someone whom I regard as dead.
Come now, certainly not. Can't I do anything? Lanyon, we are 3 very old friends. we shall not live to make others.
Nothing can be done. Ask himself.
He won't see me.
Yes, well, I'm not surprised at that. Someday, Edison, after I am gone, you may come to learn the right and wrong of this. I cannot tell you. In the meantime, if you can sit and talk with me of other things, for God's sake, stay and do so. If you cannot keep clear of this accursed subject, then in God's name go, for I cannot bear it.
I was too deeply perplexed to make small talk with my dying friend. I thought I deserved an explanation. When I got home, I wrote to Jekyll, begging to know why I'd been excluded from his house and to know the cause of the unhappy break with Lanyon. The next day, I received a letter from Jekyll.
I do not blame our old friend, but I share his view that we must never meet. I mean from henceforth to lead a life of extreme seclusion. You must not be surprised, nor must you doubt my friendship if my door is often shut even to you. You must suffer me to go my own dark way. I have brought on myself a punishment and a danger that I cannot name. I did not think that this earth contained a place for such sufferings and terrors, and you can do but one thing, Utterson, to lighten this destiny, and that is to respect my silence.
I was amazed. The dark influence of Hyde was gone, and Jekyll had returned to his old self. Yet now, within a week, his peace of mind, old friendships, and his whole world wrecked. In view of Lanyon's manner and words, I suspected there was something deeper. Within a week, Lanyon was dead. After the funeral, I went back to my office and laid on the desk an envelope that had been handed to me. It was addressed in the frail hand of Lanyon. In large writing, it read, "Private, for the hands of G.J. Utterson alone, and if he shall die before me, then to be destroyed unread." I was filled with dread, but out of loyalty to my friend, I opened it. In the same handwriting, it read, "Not to be opened until the death or disappearance of Dr. Henry Jekyll." I couldn't believe my eyes. There was that word again, disappearance. I immediately thought of Jekyll's suspicious will, which I gave back to him long ago, but there it was again. Disappearance and the name Henry Jekyll in the same sentence. I thought that in the will it had been put there by Hyde, but in Lanyon's hand, what could it mean? Despite my curiosity and professional honor and loyalty to my dead friend required that the package remain in my safe.
It is one thing to entertain curiosity, and another to conquer it. And one might not doubt that from that day on, Mr. Utterson was less eager to keep company with Dr. Jekyll. He went to call to be certain, but he was relieved to be turned away. He seemed wholly satisfied to talk with Mrs. Poole on the doorstep, surrounded by the air and sounds of the city, rather than go into that house of voluntary exhalation. Besides, she hadn't any pleasant news to relate. The doctor was spending more and more time in the office above the laboratory. He had grown silent. He didn't read. He seemed as if he always had something on his mind. Utterson grew so used to the repetition of the same news that he visited less and less often.
When I came to myself at Lanyon's, it was perhaps the sheer horror of my old friend that affected me. I do not know, but a change came over me. It was no longer the fear of the gallows. It was the horror of being Hyde that racked me. I had not forgotten the appalling dangers of the day before, and I was grateful for my escape. I was crossing the courtyard after breakfast when I was seized again suddenly, and barely had enough time to reach my laboratory before I was raging with the passions of Hyde. It took a double dose to come to myself. But after 6 hours, the drug had to be re-administered. From that day on, it seemed only by great effort and by the direct stimulation of the drug that I was able to become Henry Jekyll. If I slept, or even dozed for a moment in my chair, it was always as Edward Hyde that I awoke. The power of Hyde seemed to be growing with the sickliness of Jekyll, and the hate that now divided them was equal on each side. Hyde loathed the necessity to return to Jekyll to avoid the hangman, so he played tricks on me. Scrawling in my handwriting blasphemies in the pages of my books, burning the letters, destroying the portrait of my father. And if it were not for his fear of death, he would have ruined himself, if only to involve me in the ruin. But his love of life was wonderful. And knowing of his fear of my power to cut him off by suicide, I found it in my heart to pity him.
It chanced one Sunday on one of my walks with Mr. Enfield that our way lay once again on that by-street, and when we came in front of the door, we both stopped and gazed at it.
Well, that story's at an end at least. God willing, we will see no more of Mr. Hyde.
I hope not. Did I ever tell you that I once met the man? What a person. I immediately shared your feeling of repulsion.
It was impossible to do one without the other. And by the way, what an ass you must have thought I was to not know that this is a back way to Dr. Jekyll's.
Well, you found out, did you? Well, now that you know, we should go into the courtyard and look up at the windows. To be honest with you, I feel uneasy about Jekyll, and seeing a friend, even from the outdoors, might do him some good. Well, Jekyll, I trust you are better.
I'm very low, very low. But it will not last, thank God.
You stay too much indoors. You should come out and whip up your circulation, like Enfield and me. Oh, I'm sorry. This is my cousin, Mr. Enfield.
It's an honor, Dr. Jekyll.
Mr. Enfield,
Come, get your coat and take a quick turn with us.
you are very good. I should quite like to, but thank you, no. I'm
Come
quite sure I dare not.
Come now.
Thank you, no. But indeed, Addison, I'm very glad to see you. This has been a great pleasure. I should very much like to invite you and Mr. Enfield up.
Well,
I'm afraid the place is not fit.
well, then the best we can do is to talk to you from down here from where we are.
That is just what I was about to venture to propose.
That would be fine with us, my friend. Now, have you heard that... God forgive us.
Forgive us. A few days later, Mr. Edison was sitting by his fireside one night after dinner when he was surprised to receive a visit from Mrs. Poole.
Bless me, Poole, what brings you here? What ails you? Is the doctor ill?
Mr. Utterson, there is something wrong.
Something wrong? Now, take your time and tell me plainly what you mean.
I think there's been foul play.
Foul play? What foul play? What do you mean?
I dare not say, sir, but will you come along with me and see for yourself?
Of course, at once.
It is useless, and the time fails me. No one has ever suffered such torment, And but for the murder of Carew, my punishment might have gone on for years. The final calamity has fallen and at last separated me from my own face and nature. My provision of the salt, which was never replenished since the first experiment, began to run low. I sent out for a fresh supply. I compounded the elements. I drank it, but to no effect. I have searched in vain, and now I believe that my first supply was impure, and it was that unknown impurity that made it so effective. I am finishing this under the influence of the last of the old mixture. This is the last time that Henry Jekyll will think his own thoughts or see his own face in the mirror. But I must bring my writing quickly to an end. If I change in the act of writing it, Hyde will tear it in pieces. The doom that is closing on us both has changed and crushed him. Half an hour from now, when I will again and forever become that hated personality, I know I will be sitting, shuddering and weeping in my chair, or I will continue pacing this room, listening for the sound of the police.
We must proceed carefully, Paul. I don't mind saying that I am uneasy about this.
You'll see. Mr. Utterson, sir, asking to see you.
Tell him I cannot see anyone.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Utterson, was that the doctor's voice?
It seems much changed.
Changed? I think so. No, sir, the doctor's made away with. Do you think I don't know the man after 20 years? Do you think I don't know where his head comes to in the office door where I saw him every morning of my life? And it is the belief of my heart that there was murder done.
If you say that, Poole, then I will have to make certain, and I will make it my duty to knock down that door.
Thank you, Mr. Utterson. Now we're talking. I don't know, sir, if you've ever met this Mr. Hyde.
Yes, I once spoke with him.
You have my word. It is Mr. Hyde.
Jekyll, I must speak to you. Jekyll, I demand to speak to you. If not by your consent, then by brute force.
Utterson, for God's sake, have mercy.
That is not Jekyll's voice. That is Hyde. Down with the door, Poole.
Yes, sir.
I swung the axe with all my might. The blow shook the building. A dismal screech like an animal in terror shrieked from inside. On the fifth blow, the door crashed in. Amazed at our success, Poole and I could feel the strange stillness that followed. We backed up a little and peered in. By all appearances, it was the quietest of rooms and, except for the vials of chemicals, the most commonplace. But in the middle lay the body of a man, sorely contorted and still twitching. We turned it over on its back and beheld the face of Edward Hyde. He was wearing clothes far too large for him, and the cords in his face still moved with the semblance of life, but life itself was quite gone, and judging by the crushed vial in his hand and the strong smell of chemicals, I knew we were seeing suicide. We were too late to punish or save. Hyde was dead. Now all that remained was to find the body of Dr. Jekyll. We did a thorough search of the offices, the corridors, a few dark closets, and a spacious cellar. All were empty. Nowhere was there any trace of Henry Jekyll dead or alive.
Sir, look! This envelope has your name on it.
Well, this is Jekyll's will. No, it's not the same. What? In the case of the death, disappearance, or unexplained absence of Dr. Henry Jekyll, all his possessions should pass to his friend, Gabriel John Utterson. I don't understand. Hyde has had this in his possession for days, and he hasn't destroyed this document?
Sir, look, there's more.
This is a letter from Jekyll. Poole, he was here, he was alive, here, today. Hyde could not have disposed of his body in such a short period of time. He must still be alive. He must have fled. But why and how? And in that case, can we be certain that this was a suicide? We must be very careful, Poole. This could put Jekyll in a very bad way.
Why don't you read the letter, sir?
Because I feel... God knows I have no cause to. My dear Utterson, when this shall fall into your hands, I shall have disappeared. Under what circumstances, I have not penetration to foresee. But my instinct and all the circumstances of my nameless situation tell me that the end is sure and must be early. Go then and first read the narrative which Lanyon warned me he was to place in your hands, and if you care to hear more, turn to the confession of your unworthy and unhappy friend, Henry Jekyll. Was there another?
Yes, sir.
You must not speak of this. If Dr. Jekyll has fled or is dead, we might still be able to save his reputation. I will go and read these in quiet, but I will be back before midnight, and then we can send for the police.
Yes, sir.
On the 9th of January, I received an envelope addressed in the hand of my colleague and old friend, Henry Jekyll. I was surprised because I had dined with him just the night before. The contents increased my wonder, for this is how the letter ran.
Dear Lanyon, you are one of my oldest friends, and while we may have differed at times on scientific questions, I cannot remember any break in our affection. My life, my honor, my reason are all at your mercy. If you fail me tonight, I am lost. You might suppose after this that I am going to ask you to do something dishonorable. Judge for yourself. I want you to take a cab straight to my house. Poole has her orders, and you will find her waiting. Force open the door to my office and go in alone. Open the glass cabinet and take out, with all its contents as they stand, the 4th drawer from the top. I beg you to take this drawer back with you to your home exactly as it stands. At midnight, please be alone in your consulting room and admit yourself a man who will present himself in my name into the house. Place in his hands the drawer that you will have brought with you from my cabinet. 5 minutes afterwards, if you insist upon an explanation, you will understand that these arrangements are of vital importance. The neglect of any one of them, strange as they must appear, will certainly result in my death or the shipwreck of my reason. Think of me at this hour, and be fully aware that if you will but punctually serve me, my troubles will roll away. Serve me, my dear Lanyon, and save your friend H.J.
Reading this letter, I was certain my colleague was insane. But until that could be proved beyond doubt, I felt bound to do as he requested. The less I understood of this, the less I was in a position to judge of its importance, and an appeal so worded could not be set aside. I rose from the table, got into a cab, and drove straight to Jekyll's house. I did exactly as he asked, and returned home. The more I reflected, the more positive I was that I was dealing with a case of mental disorder. 12 o'clock had scarce hung out before the knocker sounded very gently at my door. Have you come on behalf of Dr. Jekyll?
Have you got it? Have you got it?
Come, sir. You forget that I have not yet had the pleasure of your acquaintance.
I beg your pardon, Dr. Lanyon. What you say is well founded. I'm afraid my impatience has overpowered my politeness. I come on behalf of your colleague, Dr. Henry Jekyll, on a piece of business of some moment. And I understood a drawer.
Here it is, sir.
Again.
Well, see here. Compose yourself.
And now, will you allow me to take this glass and to go from your house? Or is curiosity too much in command of you? Think before you answer. One decision and you will be left as you were before, neither richer nor wiser. But if you prefer the other option, a new province of knowledge and power will be laid out unto you.
Oh, sir, you speak enigmas, but I have gone too far in the way of inexplicable services to pause now before I see the end.
Very well, Lanyon. And now, you who have been so long bound to the most narrow and material views, you who have denied the virtue of transcendental medicine, you who have derided your superiors, behold! Oh!
When he told me in the next hour I cannot bring myself to set on paper, I saw what I saw, I heard what I heard, and my soul sickened at it. And yet now when that sight has faded from my eyes, I ask myself if I believe it, and I cannot answer. My life is shaken to its roots. The deadliest terror sits by me at all hours, and I feel that I must die. And yet I shall die incredulous. I will say but one thing, and if you believe it, it will be more than enough. The creature who came to my house that night was by Jekyll's own confession, known by the name of Hyde, and the hunted murderer of Major Danvers Carew.
It cannot be. Hyde was not Henry Jekyll. But if Hasty Lanyon is to be believed, and he should be, then what in God's and science name did Henry uncover? How could a man so good possess a nature so wholly evil?
please call the police now?
Yes, we can send for the police now, Poole.
Did those letters say where Dr. Jekyll is?
Yes, yes they did. He is safely away. He escaped the torture of Hyde. But I fear we will never see him again.
Oh, God bless his soul.
Yes. God bless the soul of Dr. Henry Jekyll. And let us pray there's never anyone else like him.